have you seen, being that you've been here with ECCYC for 15 years, have you seen any changes in the organization or in the retreats itself or anything with the kids?
Every year we have our changes. The kids, you know, it's amazing to see from the older generation to the newer generation now. Like I said, I loved seeing the older generation with the newer generation, and then especially when you know the kids when they were little, like really little kids, and then now they're coming in high school or they're serving with us. That, like, to me, that's amazing.
So you see, I guess, attendees from previous years that have now become servants to ECCYC?
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. Therefore, there are always going to be struggles. There's always going to be hardships. And because we're different, and because we follow Christ, we should be different in a good way. We're going to meet some struggles. Everybody knows who this is, right? No, that's us. No. So basically, imagine this is one of us. And in these white papers, you know how the piñata works, right? You pull a string, and hopefully after a few of them, not from the first one. I don't know how this is work. It's going to be the first time we try it, but hopefully it'll work and give a meaning of what it's not just about the candy. So at the bottom of every string, there's a struggle or a challenge that we meet in our life. So it's about 15. I'm going to ask 15 of maybe, not the big guys, because I know they're going to pull it and they're going to break it. So one, I want you, before you pull it, read the struggle and keep the paper with you.
Spiritual struggles.
Spiritual struggles. Your personal spiritual struggles. Pull.
My desires.
Time management and procrastination.
That's a big struggle that we have. Pull. Pull hard.
Pleasing others regardless of outcome.
Pleasing others regardless, and that kind of touches home what we just talked about. Just to make fun with our friends or to show off in front of our friends, regardless what the outcome was, regardless how many people stay up late from going home, as long as we please others.
Smoking, drugs, and alcohol.
Dealing and reasoning with parents.
Big struggle. Next.
Admitting you have a problem.
That's another struggle. Pull.
Living according to wrong values and principles.
Okay, good. Next.
Relationships. Fitting in peer pressure.
Fitting in and peer pressure.
Bad images.
Bad images. Going with the flow of society.
Going with the flow of society.
Technology.
Technology. Pull it, pull it. Pull it. Yalla. Calm down, calm down, calm down. All these are struggles. The things that we just read, and I'm going to show some more. The problem is, if this is one of us, one of these days when we give in to the struggles, it will destroy us. It will destroy us. Maybe after the first pull, after the first struggle, after the 10th. But one of these days it will come a struggle and it will destroy us. And it doesn't start all of a sudden. It starts one step at a time. It took how many pulls just to ruin it? A lot. So I'm just going to kind of go over them again and so on and so forth. I'm sure you could add tons of more. And most of these I asked some of you, give me some of your challenges. Most of these I got it from you guys. So the problem is when we give in to our challenges or these struggles, it will shift us from our main values and principles that we were supposed to live by. And we are shifted from our main values and principles that we're supposed to live by, then disasters happen, disasters occur. And when these disasters happen and occur, all of a sudden we start living by some destructive habits that could ruin our life. Not only destructive, but disruptive. I'm sure you know what does this mean. our phone that we're glued to 24/7, the social media, habits in our relation with bad relationships, places that really ruin our lives and lives of many other people, and we talk cigarettes or drugs. How many of us went to Abuna and said, Abuna, I can't stop cursing? Why? Because we gave into that struggle and we can't stop cursing. All of these are habits that a lot of people live by, and I hope none of us will have to live by. But these habits come if we give in our struggles, if we start shifting our values and principles, and all of a sudden these struggles will become horrible habits that will take part of our life. So, if we give in, what are the dangers of giving into our struggles? And I'm not going to talk a lot. It's going to be quick, but I want you to memorize the few struggles, or the dangers of the struggles, and why, or a few things after that. So keep those in mind because I'm going to test you in the end. Whenever we talk about values and principles, I want us to remember one thing. Remember pillars, or major supports that support a building, or support, imagine a 100-story building is supported by these major, strong iron pillars. If they shift just a quarter of an inch, maybe a quarter of an inch is not a big deal, but you times a quarter of an inch times 100 stories, that's about 25 inches. That's a lot of shifting. What's going to happen to the building? It will collapse. Therefore, the first danger of giving into any of those struggles that we mentioned is shifting our values and principles will lead to destruction. That's the first danger. The next danger is whatever the most influential aspect in my environment, this is what's going to lead my life. If the media has more influence, or the media has, then I'll be led by the media. If my friends have more influence, then I'll be led by my friends. If society has more influence in my life, then I'll be led by society. 3 is drifting away from grace, drifting away from the church, drifting away from my values and principle, drifting away from family, drifting away from my good friends, and all of a sudden I'm so far away just because I started to shift a little bit and I started to give into my struggles. I started to shift from my principles and values, and all of a sudden I'm drifted and I'm affected by my environment. Another danger is distraction from our goal. Okay, so remember those 4 things. As a Christian, I'm expected to live by this verse, as St. Paul said. Let's read it together. And whatever you do, do it heartily, as to the Lord and not as to men. So we live according to whom? Society or God? Men or God? Pleasing others or God? The law or God? God. Whenever you do something, do it to its fullness, wholeheartedly. As long as it's according to God, to the Bible, and the guidance of the church. But is that really what happens? Is that really what happens? What happens sometimes is a little bit different. What really happens? What happens is, we'll talk about 5 quick points. You know, if you bring a big, remember I showed you the picture of the big pillars that's supporting this big structure. If every day when I'm passing by, I bring a chisel and a hammer and just chip away a little bit. After maybe a year, what's going to happen to this big pillar? It's going to collapse. Absolutely nothing. And we do that with our values and principles. We shift a little bit. We start to chip away in our values and principles a little bit at a time. And without realizing, it's going to come at a time where, just like we saw Batman, is going to collapse. One string at a time, till all of a sudden, everything collapsed. So that's one. Number two is what we call compromise, or if you want to call it negotiate, in our values and principles. You know, when you, who's here from New York? And you went to, of course, you ever go shopping in the city and you walk around, you see these guys selling bags or whatnot on the streets, you start to haggle with them. You start with $50, you end up buying with $5. It's exactly what we try to do with God. We try to compromise and negotiate in our values. And I listed some examples, but there's a lot more. You know, I love this song, but it has few curses. Who cares? It's not going to change anything. And all of a sudden, after a year, I go to Abuna. It's like, Abuna, you know, I have this bad habit of cursing, and I don't know why, and I can't stop. Most likely because either your friend is cursing or the music that you listen to. But because you negotiated and you compromised in this value or in this principle, it ended up affecting your life. Another example is, it's a beautiful show. It's just one bad scene. I'm just going to cover my eyes when that scene comes. Who are we kidding? I'm fasting, but when we go to Red Lobster, I'm going to order butter shrimp. Abuna, I'm not eating them because of the butter. I'm eating because of the shrimp. But ironically, it starts with the word butter. One time we went to Red Lobster during Siyam, and one kind of deceitfully he ordered butter shrimp. So the waiter comes, he goes, "Who ordered the butter shrimp?" Everybody looked down. And she had to ask like 2-3 times, so he finally said, "That was me." I'm going to attend liturgy, but maybe the last half an hour. We're negotiating again. Again, you know, these guys I hang out with, they party really well, but they're great guys. You know, they're beautiful hearts. And that's why, you know, they're my friends. Eventually, I give in to this principle, and we're going to talk about that in a few seconds. And these values is going to affect me. You know, there's a saying that says, "Show me your friends, and I'll tell you who you are." You know the old saying that says, "You are what you eat"? Yeah, did you ever hear that before? Yes. And I'm a big believer of this saying. Show me your friends, and I'll tell you who you are. Show me where your friends go, and I'll tell you where you're going to go. Show me what your friends do behind the scene, and I'll tell you what you're going to do behind the scene. Show me the things that your friends do when their parents go to sleep in the basement, and I'll tell you what you're going to do when your parents go to sleep in the basement. So, to go back, just to make sure, Yani, we're following. First thing is, okay, 2, compromise, negotiate in our values and principles. 3, balance between. We're going to talk about 2 things that sometimes we balance for. There's a lot of things. But in Christianity, there's no such thing as balancing. One of the bishops, I love when he said, you know, Christianity is like a la carte. It's not an open buffet. I take what I want and I leave back what I want. No. It's a meal. I finish it all. It's one complete meal. I cannot balance my life between what I want to do and what should I really do and what pleases God. Remember, His Grace talked yesterday about he was walking for 40 days with a checklist. What did I do today to please God? So the first balance is a lot of us that we do is we try to balance between living in Christ, as we learned yesterday, and what we want to do or our own desires. You know, some of the famous quotes that we hear a lot, as long as I pray one liturgy a month. I'm trying to balance to please God, and I'm going to pray one liturgy a month, but it's okay, as if the rest of the month is not important. It's just a checklist that I'm going to do. And those who went through the workshops to drinking, as long as I drink, but I don't get drunk. As long as I drink, but I don't get drunk. And that's, if I don't get drunk, then it's okay. I can drink as much as I want to, and I'm trying to balance what I really want to do and my desires, and in the same time, not upset God, as if I'm going to be able to do that forever. As long as it doesn't become a habit. You know, a cigarette once in a while, you know, somebody offered me weed, you know, I'm just going to try it. You know, it's legal in some of the states, you know that? So it can't be that bad. It can't be that harmful. If it's legal, then the government knows what they're doing. You know, one drink, one party, as long as it doesn't become a habit. But when do I know if my habit started or not? Does anyone can guarantee when does a habit start? Those who attended the drinking workshop, I told you the story about the guy who became a chronic alcoholic in 6 months. 6 months. All it took is 6 months to become a chronic alcoholic. Did he ever think in the beginning he would have to be treated for being an alcoholic? I'm sure not. Another type of balance that we do is, as we heard in one of the struggles, is pleasing others. And kind of exact what happened today. You know, we try to be funny among our friends so we're cool. We end up, sorry to say, I don't like this word, but not intelligent things or stupid things. So let's quit pleasing others. Because sometimes pleasing others, it becomes on the account of my salvation or my relationship with my parents or my own health, many things. And I try to see myself through the eyes of others. It doesn't matter who they are. And it doesn't matter who their principles are and what their values are. As long as they're happy what they see in me. Therefore, it's going to lead me to do what? Horrible things, or not very smart things, just to please others. Just to make others people, oh, look at this guy, look what he did. He's cool. He spilled the whole salt shaker in the plate. So do you remember the first two? Okay, the second one, compromise and negotiate. The third one is balancing. Okay, number 4, where we try to justifying or bending my values and principles in drinking. And people will come, examples from the Bible and verses from the Bible, and will make all kind of, cases to justify drinking and make it, in my eyes, something that's quote-unquote legal to do. Smoking and drugs, same thing. Relationships, I don't do anything wrong. Couple months, I only put my hands on her shoulder. A year later, we're just holding hands. And I don't think it's a year, I think it's much faster than that. And all of a sudden, one thing after another. We're going to get married after 16 years, so it's okay. Right? That's what happened. As long as we get married, that's her parents know and my parents know. What do you know? Do you guys go to school together? And we start justifying and making everything that looks, or we put our heads into the sand. You know the ostrich? Sometimes what does it do? puts his hand in the sand, as acts like nothing is going on. We have no idea. That's wrong. I didn't know. Like what Mark was saying now, and no one told me to throw toilet paper on the floor in the bathroom. Anyway, you guys gonna get it, so you leave. And that's something we just experienced recently, and we're gonna experience for a long time. People justify and they bend the teaching of the Bible. A great example, what happened about a month ago. A big law came out that says what? Gay marriage is legal, perfect. And most of these people are Christian. And they say, when somebody was asked, a bishop who became gay and said, well, what do you think about St. Paul and what he wrote about in Romans? He said, that's Paul's opinion. All of a sudden now, he bent the Bible to be St. Paul's opinion. He justified the Bible to be St. Paul's opinion just to do what he wants to do. Just to live according to what he wants to do. A bishop. Imagine regular lay people that will interpret as, someone said about, Obama said, well, there's mention in the Bible very vague, very vague. It's in black and white. How much more clear could it be? But he's justifying it, or whoever it is, justifying, and look what it leads to, disasters. People that want drugs or like marijuana to be legal, they're justifying, oh, it's for medicinal purpose. Come on. Who really believes that it's for medicinal purpose? There's 110 medicine for pain and other things. And the more we justify, the more we bend, what's next? And when does it stop? It will not stop. Last point, then we're gonna, but this is a very important point. Sometimes we give in to our struggles and we bend our values and principles and we drift away from them. You know why? Simply because we never had values. We never identified values to begin with. Something I learned last year from His Grace Bishop Thomas in ECCYC, and I'm quoting Sayyidina, each one of us should set a code of values and principles, and maybe Sayyidina could elaborate more and talk to us more about that. What do I have principles? Did I ever set them? Did I say, here are my principles? When it comes to praying, I have a certain code. When it comes to relationships, I have a certain code. When it comes to watching bad things on my computer or my phone, I have a certain code. I don't go on the internet unless I know exactly what I'm going to do. I don't go on the internet unless if I have free time. I didn't say unless, I said if I have free time. And that's a big problem. We really need to start from now to set and preset our values and goals. Start with a piece of paper and write it very general. And I think Sayyidina was saying, and the more you live and the more experience you gain, you will be able to add more and more values and principles from the experience that you live through. So what are these, I'm just an example of some of the values and principles that we should be thinking about and we should be writing down. And be honest with you, Abuna Michael said something very nice this morning. You want to get something out of it, sit down with yourself 5 minutes before you leave back home. 5 minutes. Pick anything that you learned and think about it and take this message back home. Values and principles in my spiritual life. That's a heading, and right beneath, everything that has to do from going to church, from confession, from communion, from my personal prayers, my readings, my spiritual reading, everything, as much as you can. My values and principles in my social life. How do I react with people? A perfect example is what happened today. We are in a society, and do we even act as humans? This is society, isn't it? Civilization. a university, people eating, people using the bathrooms, people working. What is my principles when it comes to society? How do I deal with people? What is my principles when it comes to my morals? Do I even have any? Did I ever think about them? What is my principles when it comes to my school and work? And most of us in this case is school. Do I cheat, not cheat? Do I share my work with everybody when I'm not supposed to? What is my principles at home with my family? Something that we neglect very much, but to be honest with you, one of the most important factors and principles and values that will make you a better person. I remember Amba Musa many years ago in the ECCYC, he said, you want to know if you reach maturity or not? When you stop fighting with your parents, that's when you reach maturity. But as long as you're fighting with your parents and you're living with them as a child and you're nagging and you're whining about every little thing, then you haven't reached maturity yet. What are my principles and values in my own personal life? Everyone is different. I like this, I don't like that. I have certain goals. I want to be this. I want to be an engineer. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a basketball player. Did I ever think about them? Did I ever put them down in front of me so I could use them and remind myself of them? Just to continue. Most important, all these values and principles have to be based on the Bible or the guidance of the church. If I don't understand what does it mean, I ask. I find out. I read the right books. I call. I find out somewhat, but find out from the right source. All my values, again, and my principles have to be based on the Bible and the guidance of the church. And that's another important question. Did I ever premeditate on my values and principles? For example, all of a sudden I'm in school and my teacher tell me, did you do this? All of a sudden you get, you can't answer, you lie right away. Or if your parents ask you about something suddenly and you lie. Then 2 minutes later, I'm like, why did I lie? I didn't have to lie. But all of a sudden you lie. If I premeditated, I take the same experience and meditate on it and say, if anyone else again asks me about if I talk to this person, I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to say, I can't tell you what we talked about. So when you're asked, say, no, I did talk to this person, but I can't tell you what we talked about. Or if, for example, somebody hands you something, a drink or a cigarette, and all of a sudden it is 6 of them, dude, just try this. And I feel awkward not saying no. If I premeditate on this same example, and I have a good, smart answer, a wise answer, or come out of it with a joke, maybe you could learn some jokes from Mark. Most likely it won't be a biblical joke at that time. I could come out of the situation not look like I'm a loser or anything like that, what I think. But we leave ourselves without any guard, and all of a sudden we get hit with something, with a challenge, with a struggle, and we don't know how to act. We don't know how to react. But if I take every example and write it down, or at least mentally write it down, I say, if this happens again, or if I learn about someone or a friend of mine, they went through this experience, if that would happen to me, I would say this, this, and this, or I do this. You know how when you hear about fights and somebody gets jumped, you know what, if I get jumped, I'm going to take out my shoe. And when we say principles, we think of what? Pillars. Nothing that shifts. Power. No matter what happens, nothing will shake me. You have to kill me, go ahead, kill me. The Bible says, do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but afraid of those who kill what? The soul. You can't take my soul away from me. The best you could do, take my body, go ahead. I'm in the hands of a better person. As long as I don't give in. These are my principles, these are my values. No matter what the outcome is, I'm not shifting. Better is the poor who walks in his integrity than one who is perverse in his lips and is a fool. It's better to live poor. It's better to live without a friend or friends. It's better being called a loser. As long as I live with integrity, as long as I live according to my values and principles, it's better than one who shifts his values and principles and will be called a fool. Evil exists by being chosen. It comes into existence when we choose it. Evil does not exist anywhere in itself, apart from deliberate choice. We choose to do evil. We choose to do wrong. Everything is a choice to us. But if I do everything what everyone else does, then Christianity is just going to be like every other religion. Then God is going to be just like any other God. I'm not going to be any different. No one's going to ask me, why is your religion so special? Because they're going to see me the same with everyone else, among the numbers. There's no standing out. There's no light that's shedding from me or through me. Why? Because I do everything else the same. I choose the same as everyone else. So why am I different? Why should people come and ask me about Christianity, about Jesus Christ, about anything, about the Bible, about my faith? No one's going to come unless I stand my ground, I stick to my values and principles, I say no when it's time to say no, I say yes when it's time to say yes, and my values will never shift. My values will never drift. My values will never be chipped away, and my values will always remain the same, no matter what happens, as long as they're built on the teaching of the Bible and the guidance of the church. To be special and to be children of the true King, I have to live according to my values and principles, and glory be to God forever. Amen.